Who is Aiko? I'd never heard of Aiko before, but they're a very large player in the renewable energy space. Okay, and they've been sort of hidden under the radar for a long period of time. We'll go through some numbers in the next couple of slides, but essentially Aiko is, along with Tongwei, the largest cell manufacturer in the world. Okay, so we traditionally had manufactured cells for PV modules, and we supply that to all the manufacturers that you guys would have dealt with over the years, from JA to Canadian to Trina. There's a long list of clients that we supply. They then take those cells and they manufacture their own modules using their own methods. And we've been doing that for a long period of time. We'll go through that stepping chart. But essentially that's who we've always been, and that's where we were born. And as time's progressed, we've sort of made a slight detour along our general core business. So a little bit about us. So we generally have about 120 gigawatt plus of solar cell output per annum. All right. Our last financials, we did over $5 billion in revenue. We have 3 R&D bases. We say global, but essentially we have 2 in China and 1 in Germany. The main one being in Germany. It's actually closer to 20,000 employees now, of which 20% are R&D experts. So we're a very strong R&D based organization, and that's reflected in the number of patents that we have floating around. Production capacity, so we have 5 production bases. Okay, here you can see these 4 produce 61 gigawatt. Okay, of which at the moment 25 gigawatt is specifically our all back contact modules. Okay, and that's what the ABC stands for. It's an all back contact module, and we'll talk about that a little bit further down the line. We've got a new plant coming online. It'll be online by the end of this year, and that'll push our ABC module capacity up to about 50 gigawatt per annum. And here's the sort of milestone that we've achieved. So 2009 is when we were founded. Okay, we brought about tubular PERC technology in 2016. All right, we invented bifacial cells, metrology and classification technology in 2019, and then we had a massive increase in production of the 210 millimeter cells for global distribution, and that was in 2020. 2020 sort of marked a transition. So it hasn't marked it in South Africa, but globally it marked sort of a transition where we started to move from P-type into N-type technology. So PERC was sort of getting left behind at this stage. Now obviously in South Africa the guys keep sending all their product into our shores, so we still predominantly are PERC based technology, but slowly moving to TOPCon, and you'll see more and more of your distributors will start getting rid of the PERC stuff, and they'll start to stock more TOPCon, and we're already a step past that, as you'll see. So in 2021 we brought about what we call all back contact cells. All right, so everything's happening on the back of our modules. Okay, and we were achieving an efficiency at cell level of about 26.5% in 2021. In 2022 we were the first company to launch all back contact modules internationally. Okay, at the moment there's only a few companies that are doing back contacts, and on a much smaller scale than ourselves, and I'll explain that at the end of this chart. So first to launch all back contacts in 2022. In 2023 our modules were delivering efficiencies of 24% plus. That's the module. That's not measured at cell level, that's the actual module itself. And in 2024 we're going to get to sort of 27% cell efficiency, which we've already achieved, and our modules are jumping up to about 25.25% efficiency as well. The top one's more a little bit of global politics. We actually signed this yesterday with a big fanfare and all of that kind of stuff, but we're working on a project for carbon neutrality. Doesn't really affect us here, but it's a nice little statement to have at the top. Okay. What's important to note here is, because we are the first people to bring about all back contacts, okay, because it was proprietary to ourselves, and because we had the ability to produce modules, okay, that's what we did. So we continue at 3 of our plants at the moment. We manufacture cells, PERC cells, for the existing manufacturers. The all-back contact technology which we developed in-house remains with us. Okay, we haven't opened that up to anyone else, and we have no intention of ever opening up that to anyone else. So that's very, very proprietary to ourselves. And when we branched off and said we want to keep it to ourselves as a business, all of those plants, so those 2 plants, which will now become 3, were built from the ground up. So we had zero disinvestment in our manufacturing process for modules, because we never had any investment in the first place. So all of our investment, which is significant, into building the all-back contact modules, okay, is now being deployed, and we benefit. All the other manufacturers, when they take this step, and they'll have to take this step at some stage, need to disinvest in what they currently have and reinvest into machinery, etc., and facilities that can produce this technology. Okay. At the moment, there's sort of Longi have a back contact module, okay, but it's very much a single line that they push that stock through. So their capacity is quite limited at this point in time, and I'm sure they'll scale it up over time. So we have a significant advantage there in the sense that we had no disinvestment. So very quick one, end-to-end vertical industrial chain. So from the polysilicon through to the wafers, through to actually manufacturing the cells, through to manufacturing the modules, and through to deploying solutions through companies like SolarVest. So in essence, we generally own the entire chain. Not relevant for us, but I think it's a good example of how aggressive we've been with taking the market on with our ADC modules. So if you go back to the stepping stones and the milestones, a couple of years ago we weren't manufacturing modules, and within sort of 2 years this is our operations in Europe alone, and growing on a daily basis. Africa was obviously a very simple next step for us. So we'll see significant growth and traction in South Africa, and then SADC, and then further into Africa as we go along. Some honours and awards from last year. So we won the Red Dot Design Award at Intersolar. We won the Intersolar Award. And while this might not affect you guys, I think it's important to know we got an ESG Transparency Award as well. That's essentially how well do you treat your staff, how green are you, what are your processes, etc., etc. Quite a difficult one to get as a manufacturer, but I think that speaks more to culture in the organization than anything else. And I'm going to show you a quick video on our production facility. So our facilities are fully automated, okay, white room environment, very few staff, and this will give you an idea of it. So Anton and Tyron and myself will be in that factory this time next week, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to that trip with the gents. Before I move on to the module itself, that first part of the presentation is really to get our partners to understand who we are and the size of our business. Okay, so when we enter into a market like South Africa now, we've entered in with a long-term vision, and we're a big enough company to sustain that vision irrespective of what the market is telling us. Okay, so as an organization, we're not going to pander to the South African market. We know it's a bit tough at the moment, and we have these peaks and troughs. We've got set goals that we want to achieve over a longer period of time, and we typically look to a very few short-term goals. The majority of our goals sit in the medium term, and then we have some long-term objectives. So because no one here has probably ever heard of Aiko, that first session is just to get you to grips with who we are as an organization. We're not just another Chinese company, and we're like sort of top 13 listed companies in China. It's a very, very big organization. If we move on to our all-back contact modules themselves, we have modules for all three of these verticals. Okay, and typically in these environments, two of the verticals will speak to you guys in your businesses. So obviously we have the residential scenario, which is taken care of by our NeoStar series. We then have CNI scenario, which is taken care of by our Comet series. And then we get into the utility space and our bifacial products, etc., which all sits under the Stellar series. Am I correct in thinking that this sort of vertical is not really applicable to you guys at this stage, or am I mistaken there?
I'd like to get there.
Well, I'm sure we'd all like to get there. And you'll see as we go through the product split, there is quite a clear sort of line between the two in the size of the wattage of our modules. All right, so there it sort of spells it out. And I must say, these wattages are changing almost on a monthly basis. Obviously not our production, but our test samples and our pilots, etc. in China. So we're already up to 670 watts here. We're already up to 485 watts in the NeoStar range, and we're already up to 645 watts over here. But the trick is that as we're making these breakthroughs, you want to just simply, sell a product set for 6 months, and then you've got to step up and you change it and change it. So what we generally do is we'll let it run for sort of the next 6 months, and at the end of the year or the beginning of 2025, what we'll look at doing is we'll add on the 645, and we'll have 3 modules here for a period of time, and then we'll get rid of the 625 in 2 years' time, and we'll jump up to the next phase, so that you guys are never caught with your sort of pants down in the sense of you can't supply a module. And all of these modules we keep extensive stock holding as we discontinue and we move through. But we are stepping up the wattages at a rapid rate as we're getting to grips with this technology.
Is that in the same form factor? The wattage is just, they're getting more efficient.
Exactly, so size, pretty much the size is standard, and we're just getting more efficient, so we're getting the same wattage out of the same footprint. Very good question. So in the NeoStar range, we have 2 modules. We have an all-black module, and I know it like becomes a tongue twister now because it's an all-black, all-back contact module, okay? And then we have sort of our standard all-back contact module, okay? And we'll run through that in a little bit more detail. My feeling and what I've shared with Anton is I don't think we even need to look at this module. This is the only module that we need to look at in the residential space, because despite the fact that even in the NeoStar series we have significant performance benefits, all of the good stuff that we'll run through, okay, the aesthetics is one of the leading unique selling propositions I believe we have in residential space that differentiates the panel from what's out there. And yes, while this module is still a hell of a lot sexier than what exists and what we'll see outside, the other one is just another step up. So I don't think we need to stock 2 lines, and maybe that'll change over a period of time, who knows. But to start off with, we're looking at bringing in the all-black modules in the residential space. So we have that, and that sizing there sits at 450, 455, 460 watts at the moment. Okay, then we move on to the CNR sort of space, and it's self-explanatory. We've got 615, we've actually got 610, 615, 625, 630 watts, and then in the bifacials we're sitting at 630 and 640. So what are some of the USPs of the modules? So we have a higher power output, okay? We have partial shading optimization built into our module at cell level. And for me, that's one of the biggest differentiators, and we're going to have proper demonstrations on that downstairs just now. We have very, very high temperature restriction, okay, which is going to help you with your yields under temperature, as well as your hot spotting, okay. We have better temperature coefficient, same sort of thing, and the bifaciality rate isn't really applicable until we get into sort of those big projects in utility space. So at a high level, those are sort of the 4, maybe 5 major benefits. Don't try and focus on that, it goes quite quickly and all of that kind of stuff. And we will share this presentation with whoever wants it as well. Maybe, I don't know if we've got a register or something, I can get everyone's details, we can send it off. Okay. Have I jumped? No, I haven't jumped a slide. Okay, so as you can see, as a sort of a standard measurement here, in sort of utility scale, we're about 50 watts per module. So same footprint, we're getting about 50 watts out of that module more than what exists at the moment. In the CNR space, it's about 50 watts as well, but obviously we're jumping up there, but let's keep it at 50 for now. And in the residential space, we're getting about an extra 30 watts off the same footprint. Okay, so essentially your 550 watt JA module, okay, all right, we're going to get 600 watts out of a panel that's exactly the same size as that. Okay, and I think while I'm on here, before I forget, we're going to move downstairs. All we can talk about here is what we can put into a data sheet. Okay, we can't measure the beneficial yield of our modules that we get from things like temperature coefficient, things like shading optimization. And you're going to see downstairs that's significant. Okay, so I mean we're talking that, you know, our module's 3% more efficient than maybe, let's use one of our competitors, any of the tier 1 guys at the moment. The reality is that translates into something closer to 15 to 20% additional yield in real practical terms, in practice.